Chapter 1 Mountaintop Rescue. Jedi Master Sarasash Turhen has been captured by Malefax, a servant of the dark side of the Force. Compelled by Malefax to lead him to a lost temple rich in ancient knowledge, Master Turhen has sent a signal to her apprentice, Marius Hallux, to rescue her. Determined to rescue his mentor, Marius now climbs the snow-clad peaks of Mount Tellec on the outer rim planet of Spintir. Exhausted from the stress of the strong winds and blowing snow of Mount Tellec, Marius stood at the bottom of the steep stone rise, clad in ice and snow. The path continued upwards in a tight switchback exposed to the howling winds. To his left, several tall evergreen trees brushed against the cliff face, where smaller trees clung to the cracks in the rock. A more direct route would involve scrambling straight up the rocks and ice to the valley above. Marius exhaled, preparing himself for a climb ahead. He'd spent time in the Jedi Temple's athletics training halls and decided to scramble up the rocks would be the best route to take. Deftly he maneuvered up the cliff, avoiding the hazardous ice and snow, finding and grasping each new handhold with ease. Having reached the top of the steep climb, Marius paused a moment to take in the view. Quite high up the slopes of the mountain, and spread out before him lay a tapestry of icy peaks, snow-clad forests, and rolling hills. Above stood the forbidding summit of Mount Tellec, reachable only by passing through a densely wooded valley. He figured it was at least another hour of hard going before he'd reach the temple, where Malefax, hopefully, was holding his mentor, Master Turhen. As Marius stared out into the valley, a flickering, ghostly figure appeared before him. An older Sarasash male stood wearing simple robes, but comprised entirely of silvery blue light. "Hello," said the figure. "I am the gatekeeper. Welcome to my valley. You handled the climb well. You may be useful. But first I must know, what is your purpose here?" "I come in search of my master, a Jedi Togruta," Marius explained. "Master Sarasash Turhen? Is she still alive?" "Yes. I believe Malefax is attempting to force her to reveal the secrets of my temple. A vain attempt, as she does not know my secrets," the figure replied. "Your temple?" Marius questioned. He knew little of this place, but hoped this gatekeeper might provide the answers. Calling it my temple is a trifle prideful, and speaks of inappropriate attachment. Still, it is the place in which I dwell, and I feel protective of the valley and its inhabitants. I have no desire for the dark side to take root here," the gatekeeper mused. "The temple is my home. You can see what's left of its spires above the trees from here, at the far end of the valley. It is a sacred place, strong in the Force. I will not allow it to be defiled." "Maybe the Force has brought me to you. Not just to rescue Master Turhen, but to rid you of this darkness as well," Marius said. "It is true. I wish this villain removed, before his corruption to this sacred valley becomes permanent. The question is whether you are the person for that job," the gatekeeper retorted, stroking his long beard. "Perhaps it is as you say. The Force works in mysterious ways." "If I vow to defeat Malefax, will you help me?" Marius replied. "Jedi are the guardians of peace in the galaxy," Marius said, his hands extending in front of him, palms open towards the gatekeeper. "Jedi use their powers to defend and to protect." "And so it is," the gatekeeper replied, copying Marius's gesture, before bringing his palms together and bowing to him. "Truly, a Jedi worthy of not only this task, but my assistance also. Do you have any more questions? I will answer as honestly as I can. Thank you, Master. Are there any other dangers in the valley? Yes. With the temple out of balance, the locals have been extremely hostile. I will not be able to prevent them from attacking you, the gatekeeper said, a hint of disappointment in his voice. There are also various environmental hazards, but given that you have managed to climb up here, I don't imagine they will pose a significant threat. The gatekeeper smiled. What of Malefax? Do you have any advice? Marius asked. He is completely ensnared by the dark side and utterly focused on increasing his own power. He will underestimate you, the gatekeeper said, his slender fingers reaching up to stroke his beard once more. His eyes narrowed and focused on Marius. They are coming. A group of hunters now approaches your position, their minds clouded by the dark side. Even if you evade them now, they will continue to hunt you, and they will find you. I will lead them into a ruin not far from the lake. You can conceal yourself and strike from ambush. I would take it as a kindness if you would leave at least some of them alive. Go quickly now. We have only moments. The gatekeeper vanished, leaving no trace of his existence. The air was unnervingly still, the low hum of the gatekeeper's ghostly holographic visage, replaced by an eerie silence. Marius pressed on through the snowy trees and across a bridge until he came to the ruin the gatekeeper mentioned. Acting quickly, Marius hid seconds before the first of the fur-clad hunters entered the ruin. As Marius peeked to look, he saw the hunter's old-style slug-thrower, and his face dabbled with blood. Soon, a second hunter joined the first in the centre of the ruin, and it was time to strike. Marius burst from his hiding spot and ran at the two hunters, catching them by surprise. Before they could react, he was already across the river that separated them, running across a fallen column, acting as a bridge to reach them. Before he reached the closest hunter, Marius' fists were already raised, ready to strike. The hunter ducked his first blow and blocked a second with the butt of his rifle before the third landed its mark. The blow to the stomach was padded by the collection of mismatched hides that acted as clothing for the primitive hunter. He laughed at the Jedi's puny attempt and raised the butt of his rifle to strike. Marius dodged the attack and quickly sized up his opponent, looking for a weakness to exploit. While the two were engaged in a melee, the second hunter backed up and took a pot shot at Marius. The slug thrower let out a loud crack that echoed throughout the valley. The slug hit Marius and punched straight through his torso, his robes offering little protection. Blood gushed from the wound, but Marius brought his fist back up, ready to face his assailants. He fixed on the first hunter again and made his move. Again, his blow landed, but to no effect, the punch bouncing harmlessly off the hunter's armour. This just seemed to fuel the hunter's rage as he jumped backwards to take a shot at Marius. Another shot rang out through the valley, hit its mark, and ripped a hole in Marius's guts. As blackness overtook him, the last thing he heard were the hunter's howls of triumph. Marius awoke sometime later, unsure of when, at the bottom of a stone pit somewhere in the valley. As he pulled himself to his feet, groaning with every aching movement, a hunter appeared at the edge of the pit, hooted in derision, and vanished. There was no obvious way out of the pit as far as Marius could see, only some ropes well out of reach. "Don't bother trying to climb out," said the gatekeeper, suddenly reappearing. "The walls are covered in ice, and it's just above freezing. They're slick with ice melt. No, I'm afraid you will have to use the Force to have any hope of success here, which will be quite an interesting test from my perspective." Marius closed his eyes and extended his hand outwards. Tapping into the power of the Force, he reached out and took hold of a rope attached to a nearby tree. Slowly he manoeuvred the rope over the pit he was in and let it drop to the bottom. Tugging on the rope firmly, making sure it was sturdy enough to hold his weight before scrambling up the wall. As he cleared the top, he checked the surroundings. The pit was just a few meters from where his unsuccessful ambush against the hunters had taken place.